Hey, what's up? This is Christopher Stolle of Realm of the Mist Entertainment. The podcast you are listening to is part of the SJ Network. Go to s-j-network.com. That's s-j-network.com for more great podcasts and information on those shows, as well as information and ability to contact publicist Steve Joyner for more information. Just go to the website and check out the family, ladies and gentlemen. Until then, enjoy the show.
Dudley, something smells foul around here.
I know it's not Fowl Players Radio, the podcast hosted by today's guest, Mike Spedden.
I didn't think so, either. Maybe it's just the Sherpa's stale jokes.
Yes. It's a good thing the Sherpa Chalet has lots of Febreze.
We interrupt this bad comedy to inform you that Febreze is not a sponsor of Too Many Podcasts. But they should be.
Attention, rebels of the Sherpalution. Today's podcast is being brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. And now Mr. Bruce will lead you into the Sherpa Chalet. As a reminder, the restrooms are located near the yellow snow.
Welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Now, podcasting from the Sherpa Chalet on Mount Podcastia, here's your host, Jim, the Podcast Sherpa.
Hey there, Rebels, and welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts and so much more. You know who you're listening to, right? Season 5, me, Jim, the Podcast Sherpa, bringing you another wonderful interview. And I think you're really going to like my guest today.
Who's our guest today, Sherpa?
He was a lot of fun to talk to. His name is Michael Spedden, and how many times did I get his name wrong in the interview? He told me what the name is that he uses for his podcast, and that is the name I would obviously use. And I misheard him, and hello, Sherpa. His name was right on the little Zoom screen. I could have just read it right there, but we were just talking and having so much fun. I wasn't paying attention to the name on the little corner of the Zoom screen. Hey, it happens. But Michael is such a great guy. We're actually close in age, and he said it was fun talking to someone who was close to him in age because he was making references that I understood. And to return the favor, I actually appeared on his podcast called Fowl Players Radio, and you got to check that out. That's a lot of fun on that show. Michael's a great guy. Had a super time on his show, and I think he had some fun over here, too. Didn't even have to make him pay to come on it or anything like that. He did it absolutely free. Didn't charge him a dime. So if you want to listen to Michael's free interview on this show, have a listen. Hello, Rebels. I sense something foul. Oh, no, it's Mike Spedden from Fowl Players Radio. He is my guest. He's a musician, a podcaster, and an actor. And we're going to be talking a little bit about his career so we can get to know him. So you guys might want to check out his podcast, too. Mike, welcome to the Sherpa Chalet.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you tonight. Greetings from Maryland all the way up to Long Island. Great to talk to you, and I appreciate you having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here, sir. I always like to start things off by asking my guests to tell a little bit about themselves. So if you can.
Okay, right now I'm the host of Fowl Players Radio. That's Fowl, like the bird. It's named after my murder mystery company called the Fowl Players of Perryville. Perryville is where I live in Maryland. We're about 50 miles northeast of Baltimore. The reason why we make that pun, or whatever you would say it would be, for fowl is because the town I live in is right on the Susquehanna River, which is known for its multiple species of waterfowl. They have actual waterfowl museums up here to talk about that stuff. So we figured it would be a nice play on words for foul play. I've had the murder mystery company for a couple of years now. We perform on boats and on trains, office parties and vineyards and whoever will have us. I also am a musician. I right now have an acoustic duo that I've had for about 15 years, and we're kind of a comedy act, sort of similar to the Smothers Brothers. It's two of us. We play acoustic guitars, and the humor isn't as much with the banter banter between us as it is with the humor is actually in the songs. So that's called the Uncle Moldy Show, and we perform in the Maryland area a lot, sometimes in Pennsylvania too. Most recently, you may know me as the Viking in the J.G. Wentworth commercials. While we're riding around on the bus, I was the big Viking that came out of the back. You've also seen me this year on Kimmy versus the Reverend. If you haven't seen that movie, it's based on the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And there's a scene where Kimmy and Titus, the two main characters, are way out in the country, and they come into a bar. There's a Leonard Skinner band there playing, and I'm the bartender in there. And, I won't give away the movie, but it's an interactive movie, but no matter what choices you make in the movie, you always get to see me. So that's the good part about it. It's not like that movie revolved around me or anything like that. We have been nominated for a couple of Emmys. I believe it was for Best Special, perhaps. And then Titus Burgess has been nominated for an Emmy for male performance, I believe, as well. I'm excited about that. I've also appeared on Gotham. I was in season 5, episode 8. I played one of the Penguins' henchmen named Dale. I was shot to death in the third scene I was in. And I've also done a number of Discovery ID shows and some commercials down here in Maryland when I was starting out and everything. I'm also, years ago, I was in the hair bands of the 80s. I had a big hair band back in those days. And then I had a band that was kind of more like the Cult a little bit after that when the hair bands started going out. We were called Orange Seed Parade. We played CBGBs in New York a number of times and, opened for a couple of national acts over the years. So, so that's me in a nutshell. So we can get a little more specific if you like. Depending on what you want to know.
Well, it was funny. The first thing that you said that caught my ear was the Susquehanna River. And I was thinking of that old Abbott and Costello routine about the Susquehanna Hat Company.
Oh, right.
Is there actually a Susquehanna Hat Company?
There may have been years ago, but the majority there's only a couple of miles of the Susquehanna that's in Maryland, and it actually goes all the way up to near upstate New York. So there could be something on the way, because that river goes through like Lancaster and Harrisburg, and it goes quite a ways up, I believe almost up to upstate New York if it doesn't start up there. So somewhere along the line, I'm sure there was.
And with your murder mystery troupe, you were an actor in the troupe, right?
Yes, I am. Yes,
okay.
I am.
So
There's
basically,
about 20 of us. Yeah.
You get booked like for parties and stuff like that, and someone has been killed, and they have to figure out if it's you or one of your co-stars who did it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm normally the detective and the host. I'm normally the host and the narrator at the beginning, and I have a roster, I would say, of about 15 or 20 really good actors from this area here, and we kind of rotate. We work on trains. One of our biggest clients is the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, all the way out in Cumberland. That's all the way out in the panhandle of Maryland, out west near West Virginia. But we also do the not the Pride of the Susquehanna. We do the Black-Eyed Susan Riverboat. We do Slate Farm Brewery. We do some microbreweries, Mount Felix Winery, a lot of the tasting rooms where they have events, and trains and boats and office parties, corporate events, whoever will have us. And it's a lot of fun. It's called the Fowl Players of Perryville.
No one's ever walked in and thought that a real murder actually happened, has it?
Not with this acting, no.
You've been pretty safe for there, right?
Yeah. It's pretty safe. It's silly. The shows are they're comic. They're comedies, is what they are really. But there's a murder, a lot of laughter. We really have a good time with it. That's really the way things are nowadays in the world. You need somewhere to go where you can just escape from the nonsense and escape from all the negativity and everything. I mean, it's just been such a bad year for everybody. And, we want to give an alternative for that. That's what I try to do I can't do that this year, but, through my podcast as well. You need an escape.
Sure.
Yeah, we all need to escape and let our hair down for a little bit and relax. And as they say in the song, forget about life for a while,
If they want to let their hair down, what better guy to do it with than a guy who was in a hair band?
Exactly. Yeah, we had some hair back in those days. I tell you, we quite a bit of hair back then. I run into the guys once in a while, and the hair went away for some reason. I don't know where it went, but Not quite there anymore. And some of the pants and outfits we had back then, forget about that too. I think nowadays half of us could actually rip spandex, as stretchy and flexible as that was, would have runs in it like pantyhose or something if we tried that stuff on now. It was really funny. Back in those days, there was so much was based on image. I can remember in the band I was in after Fritz's Dynamite, which was the band I was in the 80s. The band I was in the early 90s was called Orange Seed Parade. And we were kind of like if the Cure met the Cult, if you can kind of picture that. And it was right when LA was just starting to go away, but Seattle hadn't quite made its way in yet. So nobody really knew what the next big thing was going to be. So we were sitting in a club we were playing one night. It was me and a couple of the band members. And this guy came in. He was about 5'2", but about 6'1" with his hair. And he had on the Seinfeld puffy shirt. He had on like a handcuff belt, spandex. And his girlfriend was basically wearing the same thing except for a miniskirt. So this guy comes over to the bar, and he's like, "Hey guys, are you guys like in a band?" And we're like, yeah, we're playing tonight. And he's like, "Well, I've been in lots of bands. I've played all over the country, up and down the East Coast. And I've played in Florida, New York, and Delaware," or Delaware is what he said. And then he said, "I'm from LA." And his girlfriend looks at him. She goes, "You are not. You're from Pittsburgh." And then he goes, "Yeah, well, look at me. I should be from LA." And that we decided that was one of the dumbest things we'd ever heard. But, back in those days, it was just such a great time back then. Some of the things that went on in the clubs that we played at, actually one time we were filming a TV show. There was a cable access TV show called Rock Live. It was like one of those things on a Saturday night, like after Saturday Night Live was over, like real late, but it had all the local bands on it. We were, this hardcore looking gothic guys, and we had this cross that we would bring out on stage, and the singer would hang on it and swing on it because we were young and dumb and we just thought we were too cool for school. So right around the corner from where this nightclub was, it was called The Rage, was Baltimore's Block. Okay, the Block is the famous red light district in Baltimore, where Blaze Starr, you may have heard of Blaze Starr, the famous stripper. They had the movie about her years ago.
Okay.
All these strip clubs were there. So when the strippers weren't stripping, they would come around and catch a beer and watch the bands. Apparently, there was a girl who was a stripper who really liked that for some reason and really liked our singer. And they were friends, but I don't know if there was a relationship or anything. Apparently, what was going on in this girl's life outside of, having this obsession with our guy on the cross, she had a roommate, and there was a bad relationship that roommate was in, and she apparently must have encouraged this girl to get away from a boyfriend who wasn't too good to her. Apparently, they broke up. The guy got wind of it, that the girl was encouraging them to do it, and he went over to their apartment and murdered her with a phone cord around her neck. Okay, well, we got accused of it. And the night that we were supposed to film Rock Live, Baltimore City Homicide showed up. Okay, so we come in, and it was like, and the actual show Homicide was being filmed in Baltimore at the time too. And we thought it was that. The guys were like, "We're with Homicide." We're like, "Oh, cool, we love that show." And they're like, no, this is the real Homicide. We need to talk to you guys right now. Well, I mean, it was, none of us had anything to do with that girl dying. They actually ended up catching that guy years later. But we all had to go to the police station, and we all had to be, write statements and all that other business and stuff. Needless to say, it kind of put a damper on our mood, so we had to reschedule filming that show, for another time. And there was another time we played there. There were some really unusual bands back then. There was a band called The Crypt that played there. And the thing I remember about them was that they were kind of gouache. The costumes weren't quite as big, but they all had masks on and costumes, and they were playing, and they had the Cookie Monster, vocals. And one of them was built like kind of heavy. I think his costume made him heavy, and he had sausages in a pouch. And the singer would come over and pull them out like they were intestines and pretend to eat them and everything. And like the singer would go, "I'm going to eat you," and then go over and start doing that. Then they had
a little pepper.
Yeah, exactly. A little salt and pepper. Yeah, some peppers and onions. It was Italian sausage they were pulling out of there, Then they had this fetus. It was a rubber fetus. It looked like something that may have been used in biology to teach, but they ended up throwing it, and it was getting batted around the crowd and everything. And it was left outside of the club on the sidewalk. Well, apparently somebody saw it at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then the police were back down there wondering, they thought it was real or whatever. And the club owner wasn't particularly thrilled about getting that phone call in the middle of the night. But there were just lots of great things, playing back in those days. Lots of good music, a lot of great bands in the area. I mean, even though, a band may be a local band, and, there were a lot of bands here, and it was a big deal for one of us to go play in New York, because New York, it's an entertainment capital.
Sure.
New York, Los Angeles, those are the places to be if you really want to get into the industry. Whenever one of us would play up there, it was always a big deal. There was always like a party or something like that. Hey, these guys are going to play New York. Let's give them a good bon voyage and good luck and everything. We ended up taking rider trucks up there, and probably had about, a dozen or so people riding in the back of the rider truck, risking all kinds of carbon monoxide poisoning and everything else as we're taking those people through the Lincoln Tunnel. They probably thought we were human trafficking if they looked at it nowadays. We would take them up to CBGB's when we played there, and it was always a great time. I have a lot of fond memories of those times, but, unfortunately they didn't last, and there's a lot with bands, there's personalities, there's conflicts, you have 4 band members, you end up with 6 opinions and none of them match, when it comes to what you should do. And so I got out of it for a while. I got back into it. I took some time off to get myself a career and a big boy job and all that stuff. Got back into it about 15 years ago, and then started acting about 10 years ago. I'd always been a musician, and I'd been asked to come out for some community theater shows. The first one was Jesus Christ Superstar, because I could sing. They asked me for that. And then after that, people would just ask me to do stuff. I'm a big guy, so I played a lot of the big guy or villain or scary people parts, and
I guess with all the situations where there were the police showing up at some of the shows that you knew about, did that prep you for working in Discovery ID?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, some of these shows that I've, that we've had, there's always, I don't think there's a way to get away with murder at all, because it seems like when you watch these shows and they reenact these murders, I guess there are a lot of them out there that are still unsolved, but it's like, there's always like this dead giveaway that some bonehead didn't think to do before they actually committed this crime, and actually it's a good thing that they were boneheads, because then justice was served. But you look at these things and I'm like, how dumb are these people? First of all, to commit murder makes you a horrible person, but then just the stupid ways they try to cover it up. It's really something else here. Yeah, I enjoyed. I was most recently on a show called Dead Reckoning that aired in July or June. This summer's been such a blur. It's terrible, isn't it? I believe it was on like the beginning or middle of June. And I had a small part in that. But in that, the show was a lot more narration. I didn't have any lines or dialogue or anything like that, really. We were, most of the actors were just kind of there telling the story, and then they had the real people come in with narration and everything, or the actual narrator of the show. But, I really met some nice people doing that. It's the Discovery ID shows I found have been fun to do. They're really fun. You meet some great people doing them. I enjoy doing them. I filmed it on Long Island too. It was right outside of Queen. God, I cannot remember. I'm drawing a blank here. Here I am trying to tell you about it, and I'm just drawing a blank as to where it was. But it was right. I guess there's Queens, and then there's actually like the Long Island part.
Right.
And it was not far out of Queens at all. So that's all I can really say.
Now, you said that you were actually killed in an episode of Gotham.
Yes, I was. What was really funny was that the first 2 national things that I got since I signed with management in 2018, the first one I got was Gotham. And my audition consisted of doing 2 things, because I was auditioning for 2 people in that episode. One of them was the character that I got called Dale. Dale had no lines. All Dale had to do was make dumb faces and react to what was being said to him. Okay. And then the other one, there was a character in the tunnel that Alfred and young Bruce Wayne fought. It was a big humanoid type of person, and I had to go in and make all kinds of noises like the Tasmanian devil during my audition for that. So I ended up getting Dale, which I liked. I was glad that I got it, because you actually got to see that it was me. Mm-hmm. The actor that played the creature, it was like during fights, so you couldn't really see them. You got kind of a glance at the face for a second, but you couldn't really tell. But I got the part, and I got to work with not only great actors, but just really great people. And the whole, the hairdressers, the makeup people, the stunt people were just absolutely wonderful. With that being my real first trip to the dance, so to say, it really made things a heck of a lot easier. I was killed by Mr. Penn. The character's name was Mr. Penn, and he was played by Andrew Sellon, who had been recurring on the show for a couple of seasons. And he actually turned into the ventriloquist. So I'm not sure if it was him or the dummy that actually shot me. I think the dummy actually kind of took over his mind, and he shot me because I was supposed to be the muscle that was there, and I was the henchman for Oswald Cobblepot, played by Robin Lord Taylor. Another person who was in the scene that I did was Ed Nigma, who was played by Corey Michael Smith. All three of those guys were just great to work with. It was a lot of fun we had. When I first came into the scene on the show, I was supposed to be kind of like a big dumb guy. So they kind of gave me like, ill-fitting clothes, like, high waters and short sleeves, and, the sleeves were too short. Mm-hmm. And I was carrying this tray of food. Now, I was supposed to have been bringing in their lunch. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting was that there was actual real food on the tray. It wasn't prop food or fake food. It was grapes, and then it was, I think, a tin of anchovies and a tin of sardines and some smelly cheese. So I'm holding it, waiting to go in. We make our entrance, and I'm there. Robin Lord Taylor was right ahead of me. Now, I'm 6'6", and I'm probably a good foot taller than he is. So where I was holding that tray was like nose level for him. So I'm standing behind him, and he turns around to say something to somebody that was, in the tech crew or something, and his nose was right above the sardines. And he looks at it and he goes, "Oh, man, what the hell?" And I started laughing, and he started laughing. He says, "Do you eat this stuff?" And I said, "Well, once in a while I get some sardines. Every couple of years I get anchovies on my pizza, but it's not a habit. Definitely not date food, And we both started laughing at that. They were all just very friendly and nice to talk to and work with and everything. Just with people being friendly and stuff like that, it really put my mind at ease. A couple of people that were on the technicians, had worked in or actually came from my hometown too, which was nice. They heard me talk and they said, "You're from Baltimore, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And so they're like, "What part?" And I said, "Yeah, I grew up in Dundalk, a suburb outside." They're like, "Oh, okay, here's where I grew up." And we got to talking about that. So it was really great, just a great experience. And actually the director, Ken Fink, had directed a lot of Homicide episodes too. It was kind of a Baltimore thing there that day.
Do you have a secret to a good on-screen death?
Oh, a secret to a good on-screen death. Well, I have a secret to a lot of good on-stage deaths because there were times when I was doing my comedy act with the Uncle Moldy show, people didn't think we were funny. So I know how to do that pretty well. I just basically fell the way they wanted me to fall. There was a stuntman that coordinated the whole thing. And actually, they had me fall on mats. Then they made me up while I was laying there dead. They did the blood coming out of my mouth, and there was the blood on the floor, and they just made me up and told me to lay still. Just wait for the bang, and then don't fall before the bang. And they squibbed me too. They had like a little explosion come off of my back that, like, to make it look like the bullet went through me and out the back of the jacket. So that was it. Just pretty much listen to your stuntman is really the key to a good death. And don't piss off the director, or else you'll have a real death, I think.
Or you'll die a little bit sooner than you expect.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I know.
How did you get involved with the J.G. Wentworth commercial? I mean, everybody knows those commercials. They've become so iconic in a short period of time.
Yeah. The J.G. Wentworth commercials have been on probably, for a good 15 years now. And I just, my manager sent me an audition. It was up in New York City for, the J.G. Wentworth commercial. And they took us in by groups because you see how it goes. They call it the bus opera. So one person sings, then the next person sings. It's usually male, female, male, female. Then at the end, here comes the Viking to sing the big part. And that was a really fun shoot. I got the part. They brought us in groups. There were a lot of us there, quite a few people. I think there was probably a group. I think they had us maybe in groups of like 8 do it. And there were a lot of people in the waiting room for that day. And then once I was notified that I got the part, I booked it, and it was filmed in Stamford, Connecticut. We were actually on a rented city bus, and we drove around Stamford, Connecticut all day playing that song and doing our parts. And one thing that was kind of fun about, or kind of strange about that, or had me worried, again, I'm 6'6", so if I stand straight up and down on one of those buses, my head touches the ceiling and my feet are flat on the floor. Now, the horns that I was wearing, the Viking helmet horns, were another 8 inches. So that's 7'4" right there. And then there were lights and stuff up in the ceiling and everything. They had light things, attached up there, to put good lighting on us and everything. When we're driving around, and before my part came up, where I would come around and, do my part, I was standing in the well that leads down to the doorway in the back, and then I would have to come around. But I had to kind of stay squatted down when I made my entrance and everything to be able to stay like A, at the same height of everybody else, and B, to not be banging my horns on the lights and everything like that. So I had to stay kind of squatted down when I did it. And we filmed that for a good while. And I tell you what, man, I had buns of steel at the end of that shoot. I got a great quad and rear end, and what is that, quadriceps or gluteus or whatever it is, I had legs and buns of steel after that, brother.
You probably worked all of them.
Yeah, but I got to tell you one thing. The production company people were absolutely wonderful. It was Crab Meadow Films. They were absolutely wonderful. I was concerned though, because I did hear him say, I thought I heard somebody say, "Did you see how tall that guy is? How's this going to work?" And I was like, uh-oh, I hope I'm not getting sent home. I was maybe a little overreacting to that, but I met some other people that were in the cast that I've had 3 of them as guests on my podcast. Mike Funk, Lothair Eaton, and Natalie Vero. They were, Mike Funk was the construction worker. Lothair was standing in the back of the bus, and Natalie was one of the ladies that was sitting off across from the construction worker. We all really got along. There was no negativity on that set. There was nobody that caused problems. Nobody was unprofessional. Nobody was, rude or uncooperative or difficult. And, we worked together. Then we had breaks together, and we ate together, and we laughed. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience, with some great people. I'm proud of that commercial. I really am. And proud of the people I work with on that.
That's great that you've had a lot of positive experiences working in television. I know, because sometimes it could be a little bit of a powder keg sometimes, but I guess if you're working with the right people and everything just goes right, and it makes it an easier day for everybody.
I have to say I've been blessed so far. I don't have the longest resume, and, a lot of the things, that I have on my resume are local and regional things, and everything like that. But, the Kimmy Schmidt movie was absolutely a wonderful experience too. I got to work opposite Ellie Kemper and Titus Burgess, and the 2 of them couldn't have been nicer. Also, Paul Laser was there from Silence of the Lambs. He was in our scene as well. He was the guy from Silence of the Lambs that knew all about the Beatles and the Bugs, if you remember the movie. He was one of the guys that was playing chess with the Beatles when they went down to ask about what the bug was they found in the girl's throat. He was a really nice guy too. And I got to meet Tina Fey. I got to work under her. She was the executive producer, and Claire Scanlon was the director. And that was really a fun day as well. Everybody was just as nice as could be. And it was a funny scene that we did, if you've seen the movie yet. It's really a fish out of water scene and everything. Well, the whole thing is the whole show is a fish out of water show. This was even more of a fish out of water scene that I really think was one of the strongest scenes in the movie. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people, not just because they're my friends too, but just that they thought the movie was good and they really had a lot of fun watching it.
They can see that on Netflix?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah,
you're allowed to drink on the show. It's okay, Michael.
Okay. Yeah. That, I don't know. Are your fans seeing me as Teresa, or are they?
We're just audio, so they're not going to see any of that.
Oh, okay.
Michael's using his wife's laptop, so
and it comes up and it says Teresa. My wife is also an actress too. She's done Law and Order SVU, a lot of national commercials too. But I'm on her laptop. She's got the better laptop of the 2 of us. I have a 2008 laptop, which is very, very slow. I've had a couple of hard drives, and I'm like that guy who still drives the '73 Buick that you see going down the road. I just keep getting it fixed or I still haven't taken the plunge to get a new one yet.
I can relate.
Yeah, the guy who's driving down the road doesn't need brakes because he can do it Flintstone style by sticking his foot through the floorboards and stopping. We're kind of a showbiz couple. We both have the same management and everything, and it's great. I think if you're in this business, you've got to be with somebody who's in this business, because people who are not in this business just don't get it. They don't get the times that you have to dedicate to rehearsing. They don't understand, the audition process. They don't understand the constantly having to audition over and over and over again and doing this and doing that, and the things that you really have to go through. I mean, God forbid if anything happened to either one of us, if I ever lost her, it would have to, and if I ever did remarry, it would have to be with somebody who does this. It's hard, because I've dated women in the past who didn't get it. I was playing in bands and things like that, and they just hated it. You can't take something away from somebody, especially something like this. There are some people that give people, I've known friends of mine who have given ultimatums or have gotten ultimatums from women they've either been involved with, either, as a dating or married. We do this because we want to, but a big part of us has to. You're taking away who we are if you're not allowing us to do these things.
Did you ever work with your wife in any projects, or you just kind of do
theater? Yes, theater. We haven't been booked in anything nationally together, but we have done a lot of theater together. We've played opposite each other, and we've done children's theater too. That's actually where we met, was at the theater. The first theater show I did with Baltimore Actors Theater was Jesus Christ Superstar. The first time we did it, the theater did it, was in 2011. I played a Roman, and I played a part of the ensemble, the Apostles, and she played Mary Magdalene, rotated that with another actress. She also helped stage and choreograph the whole thing, and we met then, and became an item, and we've done quite a few shows and a lot of children's shows together too. We have a lot of fun doing those as well. But nothing that we've never booked anything together through our manager. And she does our murder mysteries too. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to talk about your podcast, Fowl Players Radio.
Yes. I started that a number of years ago just because I like hearing about people's journeys. I started that. I was on another podcast as a co-host, but it wasn't a good mix of people. I was like 15 years older than the other guys that were doing it. And my frames of references were completely off. The kind of guests I want to have were people that I knew from bands in the 80s. These guys were interviewing their friends that were 25, something like that, 30. Whenever I would make a joke or talk about something, that was just like, whew, right over their heads. When you make, as you get older, when you make pop culture references or something like that in front of younger people, they have no idea.
You get the deer in the headlights look.
Right. And after a while too, I think those guys kind of lost interest in doing it. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I was going to continue doing it on my own and do a similar type of show. It started off just as in the Mid-Atlantic with a lot of people that were former television personalities that we all grew up watching on the news, kids shows that we remembered from the 70s, from Baltimore and surrounding areas, like television stations. Mm-hmm. Bands, theater people, actors, like a lot of people from The Wire, people that ran haunted houses and all kinds of things in the area, just kind of like a local pop culture type of thing. And then lately, I've been blessed to make some newer connections lately with good old Steve, your friend and mine, Steve Joyner.
Uber publicist Steve Joyner.
Yes. And we've been able to make much better connections and kind of expand the show and our listenership into new markets and everything. So that's kind of what we do, and I do have people come on and shamelessly plug themselves, mm-hmm. Tell us what's going on and things like that, and I shamelessly plug what I'm doing. Unfortunately, this year, I've had a whole bunch of nothing going on because of the COVID has basically shut down all the venues we do our murder mysteries in. I'm also I sing, too, in the chorus of the Chesapeake, named after the Chesapeake Bay. It's an a cappella chorus where we sing barbershop music, which was like a barbershop quartet, but there's 60 of us. And we do concerts a couple times a year. We sing at the mall during Christmas, a whole group of us. And we do usually one Oriole game, usually when they're playing the Blue Jays, so we can sing both national anthems. We do that once a year as well. Mike Rowe was one of our members from Dirty Jobs. He was part of the Baltimore Opera too, but Mike actually started singing. Now, he was in it years and years ago, like in the 70s and 80s when he was a young kid. My grandfather sang with him from 56 until the day that he died in 04. And I joined just a couple of years ago. I'd always wanted to do it, but life never allowed me to do it. But I decided I'm going to start doing it. It's a lot of fun. It's a great chance to, and I love hearing stories about my grandfather too. He was a great singer. He was a lead, one of the big wheels in there. So, and I've had those guys on the podcast too, just to talk about different things. So it's Fowl Players Radio. You can find us on, I've got my list over here on the wall: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Castro, Castbox, iHeartRadio. You can also find it at foulplayersradio.buzzsprout.com. We have a Facebook page called Fowl Players Radio. Remember the W in foul when you go to look it up. I have my Michael Spedden page on Facebook if you want to like me or throw darts at it, whatever you want to do. I have my Fowl Players of Perryville page on there, and you can check that. Again, there's a whole lot of nothing going on right now with that. We also do have a website called thefowlplayersofperryville.com. You can go on and look at pictures of our performances, and my contact information for that, you can call me at 443-600-0446 or fowlplayersofperryville@yahoo.com for bookings and once this COVID mess is over. So, those are all my plugs. Those are all my plugs and all my shameless self-promotion here,
He even beat me to it before I even asked him, but that's okay.
I can repeat it later, but
I think you got it all covered there. You know what? What other podcasts do you like to listen to, Michael?
let me see what some of my favorite ones. I like Larry Miller. I like Gilbert Gottfried. Eddie Trunk is great. I like, let me see, Sword and Scale. There's a number of horror and true crime ones that I like that are pretty good. You know, I've listened to a few of yours that I've liked. You know, I've enjoyed, I've only gotten to know you recently. You know, I've enjoyed listening to yours. I also like The Life 1069, done by Don Smith, who is part of our hangout group here. You know, there's a lot of great ones out there. Let me see some other ones I like. You know, there's a couple of them that are true crime. I've been so busy working on my own that I forgot the name of a couple of them that I kind of got into a little bit. But those are the main ones I like. You know, Eddie Gilbert, Larry Miller. Kevin Pollak had a really nice one for a number of years. I don't think he's doing it anymore. Dom Irrera is another one that I really like too. So those are the ones that I like. I really like listening to people's stories, people's journey in entertainment. I like things like the history of famous people. Mike Rowe's got a great one too. Mike Rowe, The Way I Heard It by Mike Rowe. That's a fun one.
Sure.
We sit there, as a matter of fact, when we're driving back from Cumberland after Murder Mysteries, that's like a 3-hour drive we have. We listen to those and we try to figure out who he's talking about as we're going along. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. You know, so that's another one that I really like too. And there's another one called Home in My Housecoat. There's a local comedian in Baltimore here. She performs a lot in New York, called Caroline Zatina. I was just on the Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother podcast. Recently, we talked about Young Frankenstein. That's a podcast that's done with a panel, and they usually have 2 guests. And I was on the episode after Lou Diamond Phillips.
Oh, wow.
I was on last week or 2 weeks ago, and we talked about Young Frankenstein and what we enjoyed about the movie and everything. And, you know, that's a lot of fun. So I enjoy being on podcasts and being on them and having people on mine. You know, it's great.
His name is Michael Spedden. Make sure you check out his podcast, Pow. How about Fowl?
Fowl, yes.
Make sure you check. It's English, people. We know. Check out his podcast, The Fowl Players Radio. And it's says Fowl Players Radio. I screwed it up again, didn't I?
Fowl Players Radio.
There it is. You said it better than I can.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I've really enjoyed being with you. I've enjoyed talking to you and everything. I probably talked your ear off. No, that's still attached. There it is. But
still got to your last count.
I didn't make Vincent Van Gogh out of you yet here. So,
Not yet. So, Michael Spedden, thank you so much.
thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Hey there, Rebels. It's me, Jim, the podcast Sherpa, and thanks a lot for listening to my show. You know what I'm here to do? Help you with your holiday shopping. No, I'm not going to give you my credit card. I've got something better. It's called the Sherpa Shop. If you go to my website, Sherpalution.com, on the About page, you will see a link that will take you to a shop that connects to over 100 websites, and you can buy all sorts of stuff online. It'll definitely make your holiday shopping so much easier. That's not enough? Okay, about this. Check out my other podcast, The Expert Factory. There's an episode about using online shopping apps. They can save you money and maybe even make you a little money, believe it or not. So have a safe and happy holiday season. Viva la Sherpalution, everybody. Let's get back to the show.
Be a rebel. Follow the show at Sherpalution on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And now it's time for Sherpa Suggestions.
So I was saying to myself, what should we do this week's Sherpa Suggestions about? And then I realized, since Michael played a villain on Gotham, well, he was a henchman of a villain, why not do recommendations about podcasts about villains? And believe it or not, there were a whole bunch of them that I found. So I figured I'd throw some titles your way, just in case you like exploring the dark side. We have The Villain Was Right, Villain Villa Podcast 2.0, Victims and Villains, Villain News, Superhero Villain ENT, Villains Never Sleep, The Dapper Villains Podcast, and of course, one of my personal favorites for the best title, we have Chillin' with Villains. And word of advice from the Sherpa, don't be chillin' with villains if they're illin'. Yeah, I know my doctor told me, don't use hip-hop speak, please. Thank you so much to Michael Spedden for coming on down to the Sherpa Chalet, and check out Fowl Players Radio, his podcast, and I will include the link from the episode that I got to appear on and be interviewed. We had a lot of fun, and I was really appreciative of him coming on my show as well. Hey, coming up on Friday, I've got an interview with a guy named Midda Goodwin. Midda, what an interesting first name, and what an interesting guy. He was a concert promoter for the Warped Tour, and he ran for president while doing so. I'm not making this up. I think I must have said this several times. We'll get to know about the world of Midda Goodwin on Friday, so stay tuned. And hey, if you're liking this show, please leave a kind review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio. Spread the word about the Sherpalution. And Mr. Bruce, have you ever played a villain? Nah, you're too much a good guy. Although I think you ate the last chocolate chip cookie. But I'll forgive you, sir. So if you don't mind holding the door, I'll consider us even. Okay? Thank you, sir. Okay, guys. See you Friday, and viva la Sherpalution.
Thanks for listening to Too Many Podcasts. Please disperse. You can go home now. I said you can go home now. Viva la Sherpalution. Viva la Sherpalution. Oh. Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?